type of reporting we often help clients with is quarterly or annual reporting. This could be for a nonprofit who is creating an impact report. This could be for a business who is trying to see what their quarterly revenues or cash flows are. This could also be for an operations team to understand how many projects they're currently working on, how much capacity everyone has on their team over the next quarter or over the next year. So this is something that's really, really helpful in many different scenarios. There are a couple of different ways to set this up. You could use formula fields directly in the table you're trying to report on, or what we normally do is set up a couple of helper tables called quarter and year tables to actually help us make this reporting a lot more scalable. And that's what I'm going to be walking you through today, and hopefully it will help inspire you to set up your quarterly and annual reporting for your team as well. To demonstrate how to set up the quarterly and annual reporting, we're going to continue using our project management database. The first thing we'll do is create two new tables, so one for the quarter table and one for the year table. This is going to make sure our quarterly and annual reporting is properly set up, and it's also going to be a scalable way of doing reporting for the future as well. I'm adding a new table called quarter. I'm also adding a second table called year. We definitely don't need all of the typical Airtable fields that are created with the table, so I'm going to delete all of those and reconfigure how my quarter and year tables are going to look like. I'm adding some years so that there's a little bit of test data within the base itself. I'm also doing the same for the quarters table. For quarter, I'm not going to directly type in the year and quarter. Instead, I'm going to link the quarter table to the year table. I'm not going to allow linking to multiple years, so I'll toggle that option off. Next, I'll create a quarter. The quarter column is a text column because you're going to be typing in Q1 through Q4. Now I'm working on a couple of years of data here, and you can see I've got my year column filled in and also the quarter column filled in. We still want the year and quarter. You've probably already guessed that the year and quarter column is going to be a formula field. And a little tip for you for the future is that I always put the year first because that's going to help you with your Airtable sorting. Whether you're doing year and quarter or year and month, it's always good to put the year first, then month, then day. Otherwise, if you put the month first, you're going to get all of your January data, then October data, then November data when you try to sort it from 1 through 10. So just be careful with the Airtable sorting. At this point, we've set up our quarter table and our year table to be able to facilitate this quarterly and yearly reporting. The next step is to connect a quarter table to whichever table you need to report on.
Thanks for investing in your own knowledge base. I'm Cherry Yang, the founder of Claribase. We're going to be releasing our flagship course, Airtable Mastery, for free. In the course, you can find over 100 videos on topics like design, integration, automations, and interfaces. It's perfect for the Airtable champion who wants to build their database right the first time. You can sign up for the course at the link down below.
I'll give you a couple of common examples. So in a project management base like this, you will want to connect the quarter table to potentially your projects or tasks or time blocks table to be able to report on projects or how many projects were started in a given quarter, how many projects were completed in a given quarter. You can also look at how many hours were logged in a particular quarter in total on your team. So by connecting the quarters table to both the time log and projects tables, what you can do is roll up the summaries from both the projects table and the time logs table together. And then what you'll be able to see is a quarters table like we've got set up here. And next to it, you can see a total number of projects started in a given quarter and also total amount of time logged in a given quarter. So I've got those two fields started. Of course, they're not functional yet because we haven't set up the connections, and we will do that in a moment. A second scenario that could be very common is for cash flow reporting. So in a different database, perhaps you would have a quarter table just like what we've got here. And instead of reporting on projects and time logs, you could be reporting on revenues and expenses. So your cash flow is made up of revenue minus expenses over a certain period of time. So whether you want to look at monthly cash flows or quarterly cash flows, monthly is probably more common, but what you can do is link the quarter or month table to the revenue and expenses table so you can see how much revenue have you generated over a month and how much costs have you incurred over a given month. And that will give you your cash flows. And as you have many, many months over a year, then that will give you a very good health indicator for your business. The other good thing about setting up monthly, quarterly, or annual reporting like this with the additional helper tables is it's very scalable. So you can add your additional months, you can link to additional tables to report on, and it doesn't clutter up your other tables as much, or you don't have to build as many views for monthly, quarterly, and annual reporting. So that is why setting up quarterly and yearly reporting with helper tables is really great. And we'll go through the next steps on connecting the projects and quarters. Back in our projects table, I'm going to set up a new view. I'm going to hide all of the unnecessary fields. And all I'm going to show for right now is the project start date. We're going to add a few more project start dates in our project data here, just so we have a little more test data to work with. Okay, so I've got a little more information now on all these different start dates. And the next step is to link together the projects and quarters tables. And then you can fill in what quarters each one of these projects were in. Next, I'm going to head to the quarters table to build that roll-up field to show how many projects were started in a given quarter. I'm going to be rolling up from the projects table. The field we'll roll up is the name. And once again, we'll do a count A. So here we can see 4 projects were started in Q3 of 2022, and 1 project was in Q4 of 2022, and 2 projects in Q1 and Q2 of 2023. So you can absolutely add your projects in for a future start date and kind of see and project out the upcoming work that the company will have. After this roll-up is set up, you can continue connecting it to other tables, whichever tables you need to report on, and eventually you get a very good high-level overview of the business. You probably noticed that we didn't link the year and the project table together. The reason for that is because our year and quarters table are already linked, so we can roll up the values from our quarters table. In the year table, we're going to create a new field called number of projects started. This will also be a roll-up field, but we won't roll up from our projects table. Instead, we'll roll up from the quarters table. In the quarters table, we're going to roll up the number of projects started in that quarter. And the aggregation function is going to be the sum of values. So now you can see that in 2022, 7 projects were started, and in 2023, we're anticipating that 4 projects will start over the next 2 quarters. Back on our projects table, you'll notice I manually had to type in all of these quarters. Hopefully, as you were watching me do that, you were thinking, there must be a better way, Cherry, and I do not want to be entering all this data all the time for both my time logs table and the projects table. The good news is that there is a better way, and the even better news is that we'll get to use automation to set this up. This is something that we do very, very often for clients. So it is a very common need that we see across a lot of different databases, and it's certainly a valuable skill to master, whether you're setting up reporting or setting up some other type of automatic data input. So with this automation, the objective is to automatically fill in the quarter as the project start date is filled in. This is important because you want to have your data as automated as possible. Back on our projects table, as I was filling out this quarter column, I hope you were thinking, oh gosh, Cherry, I hope there must be a better way because I do not want to manually input all this data. The good news is that there is a better way to do this using automation, and the even better news is that we can set up this automation together because it's a really helpful automation to know anytime you want to copy a column of data over into another automatically. It's a really good principle, and we see this kind of automation used over and over again in a lot of our client consulting projects. So I'm really excited to share this with you. The principle behind what we're doing is really to use the project start date and use formulas to pull out what is the quarter based on the project start date. So the first step of this automation is actually inside of a formula. We need to first identify what is the quarter based on the start date of the project, and that's something that you can do using a formula. The second step of this automation is in Airtable automation itself to actually be able to copy the formula, the quarter based on our formula calculations, into the linked quarters field. And that eliminates the need for someone to go in manually to copy and paste or to think about what quarter that project was in. So let's go ahead and create a formula to show us what quarter we're in. When we were talking about formulas, you'll recall me showing you this date-time format formula, and there are lots of different values you can pull out of a date. For example, you can pull month in lots of different formats. You can pull the quarter, you can pull the date, the week, the year, hours, seconds, minutes, etc. Like anything you can think of in that date, you can isolate and pull that out using the datetime format formula. For now, what's relevant to us is this quarter. The purpose of this quarter formula is to get this formula to look exactly like the quarter in our quarters table, so that when the automation goes to copy and paste it, it's exactly the same value. Here, I'll use the datetime format formula. So the error I just got when I tried to add in the quarter is because I forgot to add quotes around my quarter. So that's something that's really important. You can see this is the left-hand side. It's telling you how I should write this formula. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So once I put my cursor in the formula, the yellow box is going to show me what the syntax needs to be for that formula. So earlier I forgot to add in the quotes around the Q, the letter Q, so I need to add that in. This happens all the time. People forget the syntax and try to use this yellow box to your advantage. Okay, so we've got a quarter formula. It's telling us what quarter we're in. But what we're missing is the year and also the space, dash space in between. So knowing enough about formulas, we've joined together values day in, day out in this first column that we always have on every single table. I'm going to also use that similar concatenate or ampersand methodology to create this year and quarter. So right now I'm adding a Q to the number of the quarter. And there you go. And it's the same thing if you want to do monthly reporting as well. You would want to make this year and month instead of quarter. We chose quarter because quarter is usually the more complicated one to set up. So I thought for demonstration purposes, this would be the best one to show. Okay. And next we need to have our year and ampersand. So to get the year, I'm using the datetime format formula once again. And this time I will not forget my quotes. All right, we're going to save. So you'll notice when I write my formulas, I usually try to write a little bit of the formula, save it, make sure everything's correct, then add a little bit more to the formula, save it, check everything. That's just good practice because you're trying to not do too many things at once so that you can debug more easily. Because if you were writing this entire formula and you made a couple of mistakes, it's really hard to identify where those mistakes might be. So try to write your formulas in smaller chunks. At this point, my formula is still missing the dash, so I'm going to add that in now. And there we go. And once I save that formula, you can see my text values for the formula quarter match with the linked field exactly. One way I could test that is to remove all the data in my linked field, and I should be able to copy the information directly in. And there we go. We know that's working properly. And back on our quarters table, you can see that the roll-up fields are still working. We've got our first step done. Let's move on to the automation piece.